Welcome to our 2024 European Special Demolition Edition. This is Eberhard, one of my favorite contractors I've ever visited, and we are going to explore how they demolish things here in Zurich, Switzerland. We flew from Iceland to Switzerland for stop 2 on our recent European adventure. And most people come to Switzerland for the skiing or the chocolate or the watches. And as tempting as a new Rolex was, we came to Switzerland for demolition. Switzerland is home to Eberhard, one of the finest contractors I've ever visited. Starting in 1954, Eberhard has left its mark on Switzerland and countries abroad. And with so many years building and demolishing, they've become very good at what they do. The last time I visited Eberhard was in 2022 when they were demolishing sections of the Zurich International Airport runway overnight, and it was completely bananas. Today, we're visiting a few major demolition projects and the recycling facility to see how the Swiss make it happen. So with that, let's get to site. We are demolishing a old apartment complex to build new apartments. They've got a 336 and a 326. Both of them are demolition spec. So if you look closely, you will see additional counterweight on the back of that machine, a VA boom, variable angle boom, oil quick so they can grab different attachments without having to worry about connecting hoses. And then of course you have all of your work tools. There are tons of different work tools all over here. That is the first thing I recognized when I came to Switzerland originally, how much they use these tools. They're switching with these tools all day long. So right there is a magnet, right there is a tilt bucket. We've got a normal bucket back there, a concrete muncher on that 336. He's using the sorting grab to grab some metal out of here. And those tools are key because not only do they help them wreck the building faster, but they help them sort the material. All of this is going to be recycled. So that pile of concrete goes to one area for recycling. That mixed pile there goes to Eberhard's facility for further sorting. And then he's pulling out the bigger chunks of steel, throwing in that dumpster. All of that will be melted down into new steel. All right, paperwork complete. The assault on the building has begun once again. This operator was at a doctor's appointment, but he is obviously back. One feature I forgot to point out was the articulated cab on the 336. He has that cab pointed a little higher up so he can look at it from a more comfortable position and work a little bit more effectively. He's got all his work tools. He just had his muncher on. He took that off with the oil quick, grabbed the sorting grapple, which is what he's working with right now within about a minute. And he is just working his way through this building, floor by floor. What kind of service trucks do they have in Europe? This is it right here. They've got vans. If we go to the back of the van, this is actually one of the bigger ones. Typically they're smaller than this. There's no crane, there's no big welder. It's by no means American style, but you have almost everything you need. You've got toolboxes on either side, some parts, a gen set, a torch, a little bit of everything to solve most problems with equipment here on site.
Before we see the big machine in action, let's visit their recycling center to see how they transform the debris into new building materials.
Before we go to the big demolition site, on the site we just left, we saw that smaller excavator loading all of that debris into a truck. That truck ends up right here. This is Eberhard's recycling facility, and the goal of this facility is to take that material, separate out the junk, the wood, the plastic, and extract the tile, the rock, all of the usable bits that can be recycled into new concrete. So for the first step, once it's dumped here, this enormous Cinnabogan's about to fire up, grab some of this material, sort through, pull the bigger pieces out, and then feed the rest into that feeder to begin the recycling process. Hell yeah, brother.
These robots are at the heart of the recycling operation. Once the Cinnabogan sorts out the big stuff, the remaining material flows through here, where it hits shaker decks to remove the fines, then lands on enormous conveyor belts. As the material flows by the robots, they use sophisticated cameras to identify which materials need grabbing. Eberhard trained the robots to sort between masonry and concrete, wood, and non-ferrous metal. The goal here is to break up the mix of materials into separate categories, which Eberhard can then recycle further. Speaking of further recycling, let's go to the lab to see what kind of materials they can make here.
And beyond metals, wood, and rocks, they have this lab here dedicated to experimenting with other uses for this material, like drywall, for example, and insulation. Where do I cut it?
Wherever you
Anywhere?
want.
Oh yeah.
And that's a really bad soap because we use it for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you can just cut it and shape it however you want it to be.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you want to saw some concrete?
All right, with the recycling tour concluded, let's head out to the next site to see Eberhard's biggest weapon in their arsenal, the 395.
Demo site number 2. We are outside of the city. Again, Eberhard is here wrecking this enormous building. We've got their biggest machine in the fleet, the 395, and that is a machine that they built themselves before Caterpillar technically had a 395. It has all sorts of attachments, so we're gonna go check that out a little closer. We've also got a 335 here, 330 over there. Great site, lots to check out. Let's get it. The operator's got all his standard work tools here, hammer, grab, different buckets, but that up there is what's really making this happen. That's an Egley crusher. It's the biggest one they make. It's about a 6-ton tool, and the force on that, the biting force, is nearly 350 tons of force coming down on that concrete and steel. That tool is really spectacular because not only can it crush the concrete, but it can cut the steel within it, severing these columns without any issue at all. After the big boys are done, the work's not over. Now we've got to sort through all of the rubble. That's where the little guys come into play. This 335 right now is digging through this pile of concrete. He's got another processor so he can crush that concrete up, chop up the rebar, and then the really cool tool is the magnet. He just took it off, but he was dragging it through, as you see in this footage now, dragging it through the crushed concrete and rebar mess he has down below to pick up that ferrous steel, pile it up, and it'll eventually be hauled off for recycling.
A huge thank you to Eberhard for having us out. They're so much fun to visit and so open to having us, which I really, really appreciate. If you haven't seen our video where we featured their airport demolition a few years ago, I highly recommend you check that out. And we've got so much more coming from our Europe series soon. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so, and we'll see you next time. Stay dirty.